Welcome to YourStory.com, and I have a fantastic founder with me. I've got Sourabh Gupta, who's the co-founder of Vernacular AI, and we are going to be talking about the next voice tech frontier. But before we go ahead with the discussion, I want to make an introduction about Vernacular AI. It was founded in 2016 by two IIT Roorkee grads, Sourabh Gupta, of course, and Akshay Deshraj. It is a Series A funded startup and an AI-first SaaS business. The startup suite of speech and language solutions enables enterprises to convert audio to text by applying powerful neural network models in an easy-to-use API. Its vernacular intelligent voice assistant, or Viva, is currently being used by its clients in different sectors such as banking and financial services, food and beverage, and travel and tourism to automate up to 80% of their call center operations. In September 2020, the startup was chosen to be part of the World Economic Forum's Global Innovators Community, an invitation-only group of the world's most promising startups and scale-ups that are at the forefront of technological and business model innovation. So Sourabh will be telling us about the challenges and opportunities in voice tech and its potential to create impact. Welcome, Sourabh. How are you? Good to see an old friend. How are you?
Hi, Vishal. I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Now, this is an interesting point of time. I remember 5 years ago when I wrote about the rise of voice assistants, right? I said it'll be a flirty voice that will manage and make sure that every part of your life is catered to. And it's coming, and it's become real. I mean, it's amazing, Saurabh. And it's I feel happy because companies like you have gone global. And on that note, right, I want to know what has been a global shift over the last 9 months. What has happened after the pandemic? I'm sure companies like you have really gone out and made a real impact. What is the innovation that's happening in your enterprise at this point of time, and what can we expect?
Sure. So just one very interesting thing that happened post-COVID was everything went digital.
Yes.
Right. So earlier, as a B2B enterprise, we only work with larger enterprises as part of a business model, and that typically meant long sales cycle, meeting the customer, yes, building a relationship over a period of time, and that also meant a lot of travel, across the board. But now post-COVID, no one is traveling anymore. Everything is happening digitally. So going global became much easier in a way. And we could have a team sitting in Bangalore doing all the global stuff. Earlier, we had to have a team in Southeast Asia, Middle East, US, etc. So it became easier and cheaper in that sense. And also what we've seen is earlier enterprises had a dual approach. There was a physical approach and there was a digital approach. Let's take example of a bank. Earlier, bank was spending 80-90% of their time figuring out how to innovate on the physical bank branches, and maybe 20% time thinking about digital transformation. And now post-COVID, that almost flipped. 80-90% time is going into figuring out digital transformation piece. And that means all sorts of technologies, including voice AI, which is taking a fair share of it. So we are seeing an increasing demand from customers in general, more awareness about what we do. And they are in a way asking us harder questions than they were before. And that in a way has forced each and every company to innovate, right? Everyone is now asking, what is the future of voice? How do we differentiate ourselves? And those kind of things.
Absolutely. And I was looking at various research reports, and each of them said voice is going to be a 35 to 50 billion opportunity by 2025, and it's going to change everything from homes to cars to call center operations. What is this impact that you're looking at? What type of behavioral changes do you see with this beautiful technology that you built? And what is the role of AI in this entire thing?
Yeah. So at a high level, what we believe, Vishal, is that we are heading towards a, future is voice. We are heading towards the future of Google Glass and voice commands. A lot of interfaces that we see today will cease to exist. Right. And from a more local perspective, 1 billion people are coming online. They don't understand English. And they also don't understand regional language keyboards. Voice is going to be a very intuitive way for them to engage with interfaces. So from a local and global perspective, voice is the future. And we are building technology for that future, which is what makes sense to us. And then, you can look at that technology and apply it in various different use cases. So now there are B2C use cases where we see, Alexas and Google Assistant
Yes.
of the world, and then there are B2B use cases where we see things that we can do in the call center space, and you said cars, home entertainment systems, etc.
I think the future is so bright for all of us because I see I've seen kids already using voice, like you mentioned, the devices already, and I'm sure even for that generation of 7-year-olds will be 20 years down the line will be in business. They'll be interacting with businesses through voice, like you said. Many of them won't probably know English. Perhaps they will use conversational AI, and they'll speak in a vernacular language, and that gets converted into text in the form of English to a American company, maybe. Do you see that happening?
Yeah, I mean, very interesting that you mentioned kids. I'll tell you why. Because I've been talking to, whenever I talk to people, I generally talk about the kids, and
Yes.
then what do the kids do? And typically, because they know I'm a voice AI founder, they will bring up
Yes.
the conversation of Alexa or Google Assistant. And increasingly, the more people I talk to, the more I realize kids are already judging their parents, and these are people of our age. Kids are judging them, saying, you know what, I use Alexa, you don't even use Alexa. So it's almost like 15 years ago or 10 years ago, we used to look at our parents saying, why don't you understand internet? Now kids are saying, why don't you understand voice? So this kind of shift it feels like it's inevitable, and it's only going to increase.
Yeah, and beyond all that, right? I mean, your company is solving a unique, complex problem. For those who are watching this and trying to work in your company, I know I saw your LinkedIn profile, and you say you're hiring at this point of time. And for those who can work with you, they'll have to understand the problem that you're solving. It is very unique.
Yeah.
It's not just text to speech or speech to text. It's something beyond. You're looking at vernacular languages that have, see, it's English script, it's Indian languages which are completely different, right? So it is a harder problem to crack. So you want to tell us how your solutions work for each business vertical?
So the probability of getting a cab in 5 minutes is much higher than getting connected to a call center agent in 5 minutes. Right? On one hand, industries have gotten disrupted in the last decade. Call centers have remained the same from the last 20 years.
Yes.
You call a call center of an enterprise today, you spend somewhere between 60 to 70 seconds on IVR, pressing those keys.
And irritating keys.
It's so irritating. And then if you get lucky, you find that button which can connect you to an agent. Then it could take you anywhere from 5 seconds to 50 minutes to get connected to an agent who might or might not solve your query for which you called in the first place. So this world is very broken. And what we are doing is creating bots which can, the post-bot world is getting a query answered in 4 or 5 seconds. So it's a peripheral shift that we are bringing in how call centers operate in the world. And with respect to technology, of course, it can get very complex, especially given languages, India and Southeast Asian scenario. Currently, we support around 16 languages, I think 500 plus dialects. And the problem is across multiple technology components. So there is speech to text, you have to understand dialects, accents. There is text to speech, which we are building for some 100 odd languages. And we feel for a country like India, Hindi is not Hindi, Hindi is Bhojpuri and, Garhwali and all of that. Text to speech in Bhojpuri. If someone from Bihar is calling, one of our bots deployed in a call center, we'll talk to them back in Bhojpuri. Right. So that is, we constantly ask ourselves, what is the future of this technology? And for us, we believe the hyper personalization part is the future.
No, that's very well said, Sourabh. I like this. What tip the scales in your favor? Because I remember a few years ago, a lot of the airline companies were trying to do this bot-based, engagement with the customer. For example, I use a lot of Alaska Airlines in the US. Yeah. And and now Axis Bank also does the same thing where you call up the customer service, a bot asks you, but in English only, what is your problem? Can you explain it in a simple sentence? Yeah. And you do that, and then it leads you to the agent. But you're absolutely right. It's still limited to the 40 to 50 million English-speaking population. Imagine the power when you increase it 10x to all the languages, right? 500 million to 1 billion people. It's phenomenal. Your thoughts on that? What tip the scales for you?
Yeah. Interesting you mentioned Axis. They are our customers. That's actually our bot.
Amazing. Then I'm your customer too. It's amazing. So that's so good to know. So can you tell our audience about this, please? And how does it actually work? How can you put this in context of the technology that came in and what changed? Is it compute? Is it storage? Is it languages that allow AI to actually pick up? What is it?
Yeah, yeah. So this bot on the call center, it's not a new concept in US, but in India, it's a very new concept. Axis is, I think, one of the first 5 enterprises in India to deploy that. And it's a huge scale also, right? So Axis, we're talking about 150 to 200,000 calls per day hitting their system. And that is across different languages, dialects, etc. Right now, we've deployed it in English and Hindi. I mean, there's a lot of AI that is happening at every component. Speech to text itself is a very huge problem in a geography like India. We don't use any third-party APIs. There are some companies that have opened up their speech to text engines, but a couple of years ago, in our early days of building this voice company, we realized they don't really work. Most of these companies are global. They don't understand the language nuances in India, and their accuracies are not good enough for enterprises. So what we've done is we've built all this from scratch on our own. We actually went out, collected hundreds of thousands of hours of voice data across the country. That sort of trains the engine. And we have a whole team working on this, right? Where we are tracking accuracies we have across all these languages, how do we improve them, etc. Then we talk about spoken language understanding. I think another big challenge is, see, when you write, you think and you write. You don't make too many mistakes. There are some spelling errors you might do, but you know what you are writing. But when you speak, one of our customers is Barbecue Nation. We do table booking for them when you call them. We constantly see people, when we ask them how many people are coming, they say 7 people are coming. No, 8 people are coming, 8 people. Now in one sentence, you have said 7 and then 8 and then 8. Now, is it 788? Is it 8? Is it 7? Is it 78?
Context.
Yeah, so context. So the engine needs to understand these nuances.
Did you work with language experts in your company? Because you're a product company and you're a very lean team. Do you engage with linguists, people who understand dialects? Is that how you function?
Yeah, we do have a team of linguists in-house, and we've also partnered with a lot of agencies, even outside the company, which have language experts, so that we can use their expertise whenever we.
How did you find them? I mean, when you were setting up this company, you knew you had to go to the linguist, right? I mean, is that how you started approaching your technology? Go to the linguist first, understand a dialect, train the machine to understand dialects, your initial days. Is that how it began?
Yeah, I mean, something like that. When you put it right now, it sounds very smooth.
Yeah, it's not. That's why I'm asking. It's not easy, right? I've not met a linguist in my life being a writer. Where do you get these linguists?
Yeah. So we actually had a hard time finding linguists earlier. But we were looking for people who get language very well. So our first linguist hire was actually a girl we hired. She was a reporter in a Kannada newspaper.
Kannada newspaper, yeah. Okay.
And then we actually found a few universities that have PhDs in specific languages. So we went to those universities. We talked to professors, got their referrals.
And were they good?
Yeah, they've been good. Yeah.
That's so good. This is the beauty of tech, right? Because you're making it inclusive. Arts, everybody would say, hey, is a linguist, that is an art subject. You're only going to be a professor. But now they can be part of the technology revolution, right?
Correct. And we've seen these linguists being very excited about the ML world also. So now our linguist team is always wanting to learn more about ML stuff. They want to sort of grow into that. So they collaborate a lot, definitely.
Very nice. I mean, as you as a leader and along with your co-founder, of course, how do you stitch together these pieces? I'm really interested because, in the end, it's about hyper-personalization, right? You want to talk about what did you test initially? What is the first thing that you tested with hyper-personalization related to the industry you're going after? What learnings did you get from that? And where is it at now? Yeah. Obviously, we spoke about Axis Bank. You can bring in other examples too.
Sure. So like you said, one of our biggest problems is there are a lot of moving parts in the whole process. And the kind of work that we are doing, which is very focused on call centers, trying to automate them, there's no playbook that can be replicated. It's not like we are starting another e-commerce company, so you can look at what Flipkart did, try to copy paste. So everything is thought through from first principles. And talking specifically about hyper-personalization, I think the first thing we've tested is gender. Very small experiments we did, right? So if it's a male versus a female, which can be tricky by the way, so you need to be very sure about it. But we started saying dear sir, dear ma'am in the call. And we did see, some sort of conversion percentage increasing with that.
What type of narratives are you using, Saurabh? Since the last time we met, what type of channels do you use to communicate to this enterprise? Because enterprise sales is very different from being on Instagram or Facebook to the consumer brands. How do you do that with the CTOs and CIOs?
Yeah.
What channels of communication are important?
Yeah. So we have a very focused approach, Vishal. We don't work with, like I said earlier, we don't work with every enterprise. We have a list of enterprises that we want to work with.
Okay.
It's a complex sales process. It's a complex deployment process. So focus on enterprises. These are typically large deals that we do with them, right? So when you have a focused strategy, then that allows you to do a certain things. Like spend time with the customers even before you are pitching to them. So typically we go to events, which is very digital right now. We go to events. We are on panels with customers. We discuss what kind of challenges they are facing. We have a lot of partners like the big four consulting companies. We have partners like large technology companies. They are taking us to their customers. We are having a discussion with them. We are telling them, this kind of technology exists. What do you think about it? Some are showing interest, and that is typically our headway into these enterprises.
I like what you said, right? You want to do it with channel partners, people who have access to larger clients. I hope the IT services, do you think the models of going to market, would it be direct sales for you, or would you go through IT service partners? Because, IT service companies by themselves would not be able to, they'll probably put hundreds of people to do something like this, right? It's slower. It may not be that efficient because you live and breathe this technology. So what type of go-to-market strategies have you deployed at this point of time? Channel partnerships, if you can give us some background on that?
Sure. I think the two that you mentioned, one is direct sales. Again, we know which customers you want to go after.
Correct.
So just send them an email. That's okay. The logic. Reach out to them on LinkedIn, email, that kind of stuff. Also talk to the partners who might know those customers. Right? So there's few strategic accounts we know we want to enter via a partner because that partner already has an existing relationship and we can bank on top of it. Partners understand that this is a very complex technology. So there are two kind of partnerships we are doing. One is directly revenue share partnership, but also in the long run we are opening up a platform to our partners. So our partners can also make the services revenue when they sell in addition to the revenue share that we already do with them.
And it's an API world. I'd appreciate it if you stick to the API thing because that's what allows you to do the revenue share, right? And for startups watching this, you have to realize that instead of building voice AI all by yourself, you can use open APIs to work with people like Sourabh and Vernacular AI and scale up together. Do you see that as a possibility, Sourabh? I mean, like we said, we have a large IT services company that can come and say, yeah, I'm going to open up my team to you. I'm going to plug into your APIs, then I'm going to open it up to my partners. Let's do a revenue share. That is so powerful. How many of them get that? And talk about APIs itself. Why are they changing? For example, my generation 10, 15 years ago, what changed was cloud computing, storage. The cost just dropped, allowed the startup revolution to happen, and people like you were able to really build good companies.
Yeah.
What do you see the future? Do you think APIs is the next big economy going forward?
So the way I look at it, Vishal, is that sometimes we talk a lot about technology and we're talking about problems and how are we solving those problems.
Correct.
In solving that problem, is this XYZ technology something which you want to build on your own or not?
Yeah.
If there was an API, when we started, if there was an API which was good for speech tech, we would have never built on our own because our focus was on solving the call center problem using bots, not on building a speech to text engine. We had to build it. And that is very important. If there are any startups listening to this, need to get it. It's a technology world. A few of us come from engineering backgrounds. We think technology is going to, technology is everything, but it's actually about the problem, the solution. Technology is an enabler. Customers are already solving those problems via some other way. Even in our world, for the customer, it's better experience at lesser cost. Customers beyond a point don't care if I'm using some high-tech speech AI to do it, or do I have 100 people doing it? Customers care about the value we are giving them. So for a startup which is trying to do something, if you're trying to build an in-car entertainment system, it might make a lot of sense to use an existing API instead of building on your own if it solves your purpose.
Saurabh, they talk about the life cycle of a founder, right? I mean, any founder that I've known for in 20 years of my journalistic career, not just in terms of age, something about managing people changes you. Like you said, from 1 to 100 itself is a challenge. And there are people I know who manage teams of 10,000. How has that changed you? I mean, because, I met you probably when you were an 8-member team or something like that. And, it's interesting, you're almost close to 100 now.
Yeah.
How has that changed you personally? The reason I ask this is, sticking to vernacular.ai itself, because it's an important management question for you. How tough is that transition for an individual? Is it something that somebody should make if they have to be able to lead a team?
Yeah. No, I think it's a very important topic, Vishal, which is founder scaling up with the company. And the way I've been looking at it, if I look at the last 18 to 24 months of a journey, every quarter I have to let go of what I was doing.
Yeah.
And that is what, scaling up in a way means. At one point of time in the company, I was managing, very recently, I was managing some 25, 30 people. And now we've made a few, senior hires. And I think in another 3 months, I'll be managing 3 people in the company. Right. And the world is very different, managing 25 people versus managing 3 people.
Yes.
This kind of means that you need to evolve very quickly. You have to stop doing the work yourself to getting the work done from people, making sure there's a system and process in place which can ensure that scaling up happens. Last month we did an exercise wherein every one of 80 people in vernacular has OKRs, right? So we have vision, mission, goals, and then everyone has OKRs, and there's a link where everyone's OKRs are public, including mine and my co-founders, so that people know what they're up to. This is how the work has evolved. Now I don't talk to people individually and ask them, how is your stuff happening? What is happening in that deal, this deal? What can I do? Now there are directors who are managing that stuff. I need to help them in whatever way to, via Investor Connects or otherwise.
Interesting point, Saurabh. I mean, for example, let's give this audience a good segue into this, because if you're a founder, you're building a piece of code, which you're creating a product and a brand around it.
Yeah.
Right? When people start coming in, you literally have to give that code and that product to new people. That's the trust factor, right? You're saying you have to cross that.
Yeah.
Is that very important?
Yeah, I mean, you have to cross that. That is definitely there, and you also have to cross your mental, the way you think. And this is a problem I see with every engineer. No engineer wants to manage. Every engineer wants to write code.
Yeah.
But beyond a point, every job is a managerial job. You have to get work done. So this is something which takes time, especially for engineers.
All these new companies, right? New age startups like yours, they focus on the developer community. They love them. They open up the platform to the community. You want to talk about your community too and why it's important? I heard you have an invite-only community going. Is that true?
I'm not sure which community you're talking about.
I mean, do you have a developer community like AWS has its own developer community? Are you creating something of that sort? Or a forum of sorts?
Sure. So we are not, to be honest, not right now.
Okay.
But that is definitely something we are thinking about very proactively. Because for us, ML is the core, machine learning.
Correct. Absolutely.
The talent for speech in that is not very commonly available, right? So the idea is to create a community of people, not just in India, but also globally.
Absolutely.
Best speech people, promote more people to take this up in the college.
I would encourage you to go ahead with it, because we have something for APIs. Postman's creating a community for APIs. I think AWS is creating a community around storage, infrastructure, and compute. I think for vernacular AI, there's nobody. I think it's an amazing opportunity for you. So that's where I was going to actually. Yeah. What do you see in the next 24 months for you personally and in a company basis? Where do you want to take this?
Sure. So we have very aggressive growth targets we have put for ourselves. So over the next 18 to 24 months, we are looking at 10-15x growth in terms of our revenues, right? And that means a lot of scaling up needs to happen. More people will join the team. We need to make bets in different directions. Most importantly, in the future of voice, where it is headed. We talked about hyper-personalization. That is a huge bet that we have taken. We want to double down on this, not just for Indian languages, global languages. Right now we are doing Southeast Asia, we'll be doing Middle East, LATAM soon, and that will probably mean adding another 50 to 100 languages. And building that kind of technology, that kind of stack, and getting those accuracies is a huge problem. So even from an engineering point of view, we'll probably hire another 50 to 75 ML engineers, voice focused ML engineers in the next 18 months or so. And we'll focus on building that community, I think, and then it'll probably become.
And will you hire sales guys in America and Latin?
Yeah, definitely.
That's going on, right? That is important for you.
That is already happening, right? So we are building global teams. We are scaling up a team in India as well, as fast as we can.
I think India is also going to change in that digital transformation story, especially with the COVID. I think a lot of new industries will come to you. And do you see the SME segment changing too? Say the 500 crore plus revenue companies, the 500 to 1,000 crore companies?
There's definitely, so in general, companies are now thinking digital first.
Correct.
Where digital was a secondary has now become a prime. So there is a demand for sure, and there are huge opportunities. But that is not a space where we are as a company focusing on right now a lot. For us, the focus is primarily the larger enterprises, so large call centers, and that's primarily because that's the product that we are building is very customized for them.
Okay, and I want to say this. I don't want to mention your competition's name, but there is another Indian company that's in San Francisco at this point of time that works with contact centers too. They started out of IIT Madras, of course. How different are you from whatever's out there in the market? Not from the Indian context, but also from the global context. Like, I would like that message out because I don't want CIOs, CTOs watching this saying, hey, I want them to get this thing that, your vernacular, complete vernacular. Imagine a Spanish person or a Latin American person in the USA, and Spanish is a second language in the US now, right? Imagine somebody from, say somebody from New York, a Spanish, a Puerto Rican person, talks on a phone call. They would probably have a different accent compared to the normal English, right? It is a problem. And sometimes contact centers may not be able to solve their problem, the automated IVR. So if you can give us that one message and why this is important, why you're different from others out there.
Sure. I think, Vishal, I think the company that you are mentioning is actually our customer.
Nice. Good to know. Good to know.
Yeah. So I think the broad message is a lot of these companies are, building the final solution, but they are dependent on other companies for the core technology. And we are a company that has built the core technology from ground up, because no other system out there is giving those kind of accuracies.
Yes.
Right? So the kind of technology, hyper personalization, all these things that we are creating, these are very, very unique. Most of the bots today, all the bots today are very canned and robotic. And we are creating that humanized element in that, right? If I and you are talking, if you are frustrated, if you are sad versus if you are happy, my reaction or my tone will be different with that. And that's what we are trying to, bring into bots. And we, as far as we understand the research we have done, we are the only ones that are doing it across the globe.
Okay. And do you see you further scale up in terms of technology? Are you going to add more technology people into the business, or it's only going to be marketing, sales?
Of course, technology is the core, or we see ourselves as a company, at least for the next 2 years, we'll always have more people in technology than in sales. We feel that it starts with technology and product. Once that is in place, sales becomes easier automatically.
And because of the pandemic, I think remote sales would be more important, right? I mean, at home, from your head office, you'd be doing the sales, right? That's becoming more remote and more powerful, I think.
Yeah.
It's a behavior change too.
Yes. I mean, customers are obviously more open because earlier you had to be in US to sell to a US enterprise. Now you can sit in Bangalore or sit in Ludhiana, where I am right now, and you can act like you're sitting in New York. No one really.
Yeah, why not?
Right. So that part has definitely, helped. At the same time, the kind of work we do, we like building relations with the customer. Most of our deals are 3 to 5 year deals. So it's more like we are a trusted partner and advisor. So we would, like a world where we can travel, meet our customers. But this is also, good. I think what will now happen, like you said, is earlier we never imagined we'll have a remote selling team. Now, even if we have people in the field, we will always have a remote selling team, because you can close deals like this.
Before we close, any final comments from you?
Not really, but voice is the future. So if there are entrepreneurs out there, people out there, work in voice companies, work on voice technology, and yeah, that's it.
Work in a cool startup,
Cool startup like Vernacular. We're always hiring.
Think about it, guys. If you're an Indian and you want to solve, you want to save languages, then this is a company that you want to go work for. It's Vernacular AI, of course, and Sourabh is a great friend, and they're doing some big things for global enterprises. So watch this space. If you really don't believe me, then go check out that bank's, Axis Bank's, automated call, and you'll really like that. Okay, it's the bot that will actually guide you really very well, and it understands everything that you say. Believe me. Okay, I had credit card issues, and they solved it in about 20 seconds for me. Really, that's the speed. So on that note, go work for a startup, go make an impact. Sourabh is of course on LinkedIn, contact him. And obviously is a very special guest in YourStory because, YourStory loves startups, growing with them. And Sourabh, thank you very much for being with us today. And I'd love to have you again and talk about another subject real soon. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Vishal. Thanks for having me.